growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, it's Dr. Steve Rasner, and you're tuned in to another episode of The Lionhearted Dentist. First of all, thank you to those of you that have reached out lately. I've been asking you guys to connect with me and ask me any questions that you'd like, and that's why I do this. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I have no other agenda. In fact, a couple guys wrote to me this morning, new practice owner from Texas, and just wanted basic advice as to how to get it more kick-started, and another fellow about courses on certain subjects. And hey man, this is why I do this. I appreciate it, and I invite you to continue. On one of the emails, I'm calling the guy back because it's just too much to write, and so I'm just going to do that. Sometimes it takes a few days for me to get to that. So anyway, thank you. My email is my name and the ancient email of AOL, so it's Dr. Dr. Rasner, Rasner, no period, at AOL.com. Actually, I do have an agenda. You know, I have surgical courses in my office. I talk about them nonstop. It's rare that we have any openings, and we still have one or two for the March
19th and 20th.
introductory live implant course. That means if you have a license in another state that's active, you can travel to New Jersey and up your skill set on implants, on live patients, not on pig's jaws, not on models. These are actual patients. So it is pretty unique. And if it's not me, go somewhere else and learn how to do these things. Because as you're going to see in this podcast, it is completely relevant to extraordinary success in dentistry, to incorporate surgical skills. And if you've listened to me for many, many months now, you would know that I beat you up to death by telling you the quickest line to develop this amazing dental practice that you still can have today, even if you are the only one in your geographic area of whatever state or whatever country you're in, is to maintain the four skill sets of providing an oral sedation service to your patients by having a moderate oral sedation license. And you all know, unless it's your first time listening to me, that I gladly will send you my protocol. All you have to do is write to Beth, who has her email on this podcast. But if you're going to do oral sedation, you certainly want to know how to atraumatically take teeth out and how to develop the site where you took it out for future implant or even crown and bridge prosthetics. Letting the area shrink where you extracted a tooth. I believe those days are long gone. And then the next skill would be, to me, if you're going to learn how to do all that, a basic amount of knowledge. You don't have to be a super world-known implantologist, but you do have to be a rock-solid implant provider for whatever it is that you are providing. Not going off, with very limited knowledge. And there's abundant places for you to learn the didactics involved in implantology. And I have the fortuitous position of giving you a way to take it into an operatory due to the great people at the New Jersey Board of Dentistry that allowed me to do this years ago. So why am I telling you all this right now? I'm telling you this because we've been talking for the last couple of weeks about goal setting, right? Talking about taking time out. Taking the time out, it's really hard to do. to meet with your team early on, meaning you're not producing dentistry. Listen, right now, if you're listening to me on your bicycle or in the gym or in your basement, in the car, listen to what I'm telling you because it's so right on. I don't understand why I don't get 100,000 downloads on this podcast. No, I don't have any guest. I'm the only guest so far. It's because, I don't know, I just want to tell you and share with you the knowledge I've acquired over a lifetime, which is, 40 years of practicing, that put me in an incredible position to go to work every day, doing what most of you do. That is what I'm trying to share with you. And indeed, I know it's hard to put down your drills and meet with your team. Oh my God, you're not going to be producing or collecting any fees during that time. You got to pay your team for their time, to do it. And I've been through this many, many times. It doesn't work any other way. But you'll always come out on top if you take that time to do this. What are you going to do, just go through another year of the same? Trust me. Stay tuned to this particular podcast because I'm going to blow your mind in just a second. And I'm going to tell you why I'm reminding you about goal setting. I'm reminding you about, it was just a couple podcasts ago, so you can listen to it. Reminding you about clarifying the goals with your team. And when I say goals, I don't just mean production, financial goals. The goals of having a relationship-based practice. You think that just happens because you say the words? We're going to have a relationship-based practice in 2021. No, you're not. Not unless everybody's on the same page and understands the importance of everything from your body language, like a smile, to actual protocols that you all embrace when a new patient calls, when an emergency calls. That's why I wrote the protocol book 10 years ago. So we would all be on the same page. We were not in my office for many years. Some weeks I'd had the clinic was on top of it, with their game, beautiful. But the front desk would be imploding with bad stuff. And sometimes it was reversed. And it was because not everybody understood, no matter how many times I would just tell them, I hadn't spent enough time, no pun intended, drilling into them how I wanted them to represent our organization. Let me tell you, folks, it's worth it. It's worth every minute I spent. And by the way, I met with my team this week. Sometimes I do it right on the spot when an emergency meeting, the end of that day or the following morning. And we did it this week because, I'll tell you why, because I had a number of clinic staff that just seemed to not get it and would come in 20 minutes late sometimes, 10 minutes late. Remember, that's not 20 minutes late and the patient started. I expect my team to be there prior to actual working on patients because that's what it takes to do what the Lionhearted dentist does. Preparation should not be considered a sacrifice. It's part of your job. It really is. Look, I'm not Napoleon as a leader. I'm not yelling at people. I don't want to do that at this stage of my career or ever. But I also don't want staff to take advantage of me, and it can happen. People get comfortable. And sometimes you have to remind them that we work because we all are dedicated to the same thing. So, I walk my talk. I'm telling you, we had a meeting this Wednesday, not with the whole team, with the clinical team about wasting time, about not letting people know when an operatory is available. Those of you listening right now, I know this may seem incredibly mundane, but I remember earlier in my career when I only had 3 or 4 operatories, that one of the protocols was if your operatory was free, whether it was a hygienist or we just completed something in one of the dental operatories, everybody in the office knew that in case we needed. At that time in my life, I needed room availability. So, these protocols and these policies you hear me talk about have different applications depending on where you're at, in your practice of dentistry. But here's where I told you I'd blow your mind. I want to talk, and it's uncomfortable for me, about the $48,000 Monday I just had. You heard me correct. $48,000 collection day on Monday. And by the way, that was on a day where we had no mail because of a holiday. So that was real collection. It wasn't like I got lucky and $15,000 came in the mail on a given Monday, because Monday and Wednesdays are our biggest mail payment days. So here's why it's uncomfortable. Because if you're tuning in for the first time, you might think that I'm one of those dentists that all I care about is production goals or collection goals. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Honestly, for many, many years, I realized that not worrying about payroll and not worrying about making ends meet and all those things that can happen in running a practice, not worrying about that enables you to do civic duties and benevolent things for many, many patients that nobody even knows about. Yeah, the civic duties in a community, people find out about it because it's a public thing. If you've heard me speak before, you will know that I've been doing that kind of stuff for the 40-year career. I even got a United States Congressional Recognition Award in 2001 by one of the groups we had worked so much with. It was called the ARC Association, the mentally challenged community people that we had done so many projects for, like dances and proms and a day in the park and just endless. I've done those things, and I couldn't do the number of non-chargeable, free, benevolent dentistry that we do if we couldn't figure the rest of it out. Even if nobody knows about it, I know about it, and we're doing it. And by the way, I did it on this gigantic Monday that we had. And I'm not here to suggest to you that if you follow my principles, the Lionhearted principles, that you'll have a Monday like that, once a month. You won't. But when that day was over, I knew it was a good day. I didn't know it was that good of a day. I went back, which is hard to do. I'm tired. I'm like you. I don't feel like doing those things. And I took notes on how did that happen? Because I think that if you understand how that happens, it's easier for you to envision in your mind how that happened, and will make you work harder to incorporate some of the Lionhearted principles that you hear me talk about, because that's what I want you to do, because they work. Why else am I doing this? So, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable, but I think it's worth looking at. So first of all, I want you to know, as I said, I went back, I pulled the schedule the next morning, and I looked at it during the day. And I started at 9 o'clock with just prepping a couple preparations, crown and bridge stuff. And I finished that day. My last patient was at 3. And so it wasn't like I worked a 12-hour day. It was nothing near that. So how did that happen? So I went back and I thought about how did it happen. And here's my summary for you. It happened mainly due to all the principles that you hear me speak about on different podcasts. So for example, one huge reason that it happened was skill set, meaning the skills I have assimilated into my armamentarium of skills over my career, which came from a lifetime dedicated to CE, which you hear me talk about. By the way, this morning, this is a Friday morning that I'm doing this podcast on. It's my day off. I spent the morning online training a little bit in surgical CE or looking for courses to further reinforce the skills that I already have. That's literally what I've been doing this morning. And so when I look back at these patients from this day, it's skill set, it's case presentation. So these are the things that you should be working on right now. The goal of case presentation is not only to get a patient, hopefully, to understand the work you're offering and have them accept it, but also that if they don't accept it, that they left your office with a good taste in their mouth. Like they never thought you were trying to sell them. They never thought you were trying to convince them of something. That's not the Lionhearted way. And even a principle as small as getting paid up front was employed on this day. So stay with me as I talk to you with this. I went back, and I'm just going to call the patients by their initials, or I'll make up their names. But one patient that came in, so I start the day with a really long period of time for Crown and Bridge. I mean, and it's another thing I want to tell you. This isn't new, but in the last couple years, I add ridiculous amount of time to my procedures. So the $48,000 day is not from seeing 25 patients. In fact, I literally saw 6 on my main schedule. I'm not kidding. Of course, I checked 2 hygiene schedules, and something did come out of hygiene. And I checked about 3 patients on the side. That doesn't seem like a whole lot to me. 6, actually 2. And one was the insert of a night guard. One of the 2 on the side. So one of the patients that came in for evaluation had an old bridge, a 5-unit bridge. It was a very old bridge. 2 abutments, lower right. So think about this. This is where the skill set comes in and case presentation together. Remember, I'm telling you this so you can go back and picture how this can happen for you, not in 3 months, but I think a lot of the people that listen to me there's some very established dentists that listen to this podcast, but many of you are on the young end of your careers. So the only way to restore this particular patient was to do a ramus graft. She just didn't have the bone. I guess you could do bottle bone and titanium mesh and all that stuff, which I also offer. But when you're doing a ramus graft, it's a big deal. To me it is, to talk about. So the treatment plan will be to take a ramus, move it forward to the areas of 29 and 30, so I can place additional implants there and have a 3-implant bridge supporting 4 units, 1 ponic. I'm very comfortable with that. Her husband was there, so that's a Lionhearted principle. Are you kidding me? I would never present that. I wouldn't waste my time or their time talking about that. All right? 25 years ago, that might have been a 6-unit bridge. I don't even know. I can't remember. But certainly not today. And I went over all the options. And one of the options was that you can do nothing. You can remove this area. And I mean it. I really said it like that. So picture, I'm talking to this patient. Their husband was in a chair. In the corner. I have these nice chairs on wheels. My operatories are big. They're not 14 by 14. I think they're 12 by 10. So a little chair, very comfortable on wheels, fits in there. That's where he is. And I'm taking my good old time. And I'm telling him, look, you can do nothing. You could remove and here's what's going to happen if you do. And I have models in my hand, and I have mirrors. I have, obviously, intraoral cameras in my operatories. I don't even use them. I literally don't. So I don't know why. It's just the way I am. So a $4 mirror from a pharmacy, square mirror, they're holding it. And I'm saying this is what would happen. You would be without a considerable space because she had 2 molar ponics. No wonder it failed. And now she's going to lose one of the abutments. So I told her I could cut off the back molar and you'll have a 3-tooth space in your mouth. I said, you're not going to die from that. That's what I said. I said, it really is about you. And as soon as I said that, I don't want that. And she goes, no other options? I said, yeah, you can have something called a removable partial denture. I said, how old are you? And I think she said 61. I said, a lot of patients that are our age that have never worn a removable, it's not my go-to in any way, and I'm not sure you'd be okay with it. This is a journey for you and I. It's 4 months after blah, blah, blah. And that was one of the cases. It was not inexpensive. Another patient came in, and this is the epitome. You know how you get an emergency each day, a couple times a week. So this is the beauty of you incorporating just basic implant dentistry. And by the way, I don't consider the case I just discussed basic. You don't even have to do those type of cases, ever. And you would add amazing interest, services, and productivity to your schedule. Because this other patient broke off number 7 below the gum. And, in the 1990s, I would orthodontically extrude it if there was a long enough root, reestablish a 3 millimeter ferrule, blah, 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 blah. I mean, we have a patient that has no contraindications. They don't smoke. They're not diabetic. They're not taking medications that interfere with bone formation. Come on, man. Number 7, a lateral, a premolar, breaks off, always has a history of root canal and a crown. Are you kidding me? That's just a gift. You don't have to be a world-renowned implant, but you do have to be solid clinician to provide that skill. And by the way, she came in later this week, it was yesterday, and gave her a beautiful implant, placed toward the palate, so it's screw retained, put a provisional on it immediately, no occlusion. That was that day. In full disclosure, I've told you before, I have a second office. The second office was my first 30 years. I've tried the multiple office thing. It didn't work for me. I wish I was good at it, but I don't know how to run more than 2. So that's what I have. And the first office does pretty much basic dentistry. And there was a patient that came into them that broke off number 10. See, as I was telling you this, I actually forgot. And listen, if it's broken off and it's 3 millimeters above the gingiva and has other good basic parameters, I'll restore that tooth. I won't extract it. But if it's below the gum, we're done. And it was. That occurred from my other office and was part of this day that I'm telling you about. I don't normally get significant treatment plans out of that practice. It's kind of a mom and pop basic practice that does $1 million a year itself. You know why it does that? Because everybody's comprehensively treatment plan. So let's stop back here. What's going on? I'm telling you about an extraordinary day where it all came together. And it all came together because there was another treatment plan that came out of that office that was pre-set up. In other words, the seeds were planted in a case presentation. We kind of forgot about it, and bingo, it happened on that Monday. So it happened because I had a full hygiene schedule. And the reason that's important is because there's always some potential to come out of hygiene. How could anybody ever question the importance of having a solid, rock solid backbone hygiene schedule, having patients continue to seek your care, by the way, during a pandemic, is a arduous and requires a lot of crossing T's and dotting I's project. So that was going on. Having case presentations that don't turn people off and make them excited about the possibility of having top oral health care. Because my last patient of the day was the husband of a patient from 3 weeks ago who had a giant treatment plan, 30,000 plus. And by the way, I don't normally like that. So in other words, you've heard me talk about having a significant other there, and very often a significant other will say, well, I'm coming to you too. Well, if their spouse just had a major investment, I feel the responsibility to be ultra conservative. And there's probably somebody listening right now somewhere in the world that could eat me alive with my thinking. Because I do, I'm very sensitive to my patients, and I think it pays great dividends. So when that gentleman came in, this husband of the spouse that I had treatment planned 3 weeks earlier, he had a full dentition. No, he didn't. He was missing number 30. Other than that, he had a full dentition. And the reason he came in is he wanted to improve his smile. He's a great personality guy, and he was talking about his wife's going to throw him out now that she has a beautiful smile. And she's all happy because she's in her provisionals. So, again, I'm doing this with you this week because I'm showing you how the whole machine works, even down the road it all feeds off each other. Part of that Monday happened because of other days that we set in motion. And I want you to know that my approach to him when I was in the room, this guy was an outstanding looking guy. In fact, he was a model. Most people that come to me are not models. And he's really handsome. And I said to him, first of all, I said, why are you here? And he says, I want to improve my smile. And his smile was a little funky. His teeth were slightly malaligned. It certainly wasn't an asset on this guy's great face. He had great hair. He had one of those silver streaks, great hair, perfect nose, And I said to him, you know what, man? You're pretty handsome right now. Don't take that wrong, but I'm sure your wife will love you if you do nothing. But if you really want me to treatment plan you and give you some idea, and I thought maybe he just wanted a cost approximation. I didn't know. And we ended up treatment planning like 10 restorations, crowns. By the way, while he's telling me all this, and I'm talking about the maxilla, he clearly would have benefited if we had done something, particularly with his smile, on the lower. And I told him, I said, let's do this. Let me do my thing with you on the top. If you're really excited, so you still want to move forward on the bottom, that's not as big of a treatment plan. And we put number 30, which has been missing forever, on the back burner. And that would be an implant and a ramus graft, blah, blah, blah. During this day, that did not add to the productivity, I had an uncovery on a patient with 6 implants. The reason I'm telling you that patient was 90. I've never done implants, not even one, on a 90-year-old, 90. But this patient came to me about 6 months ago with a denture in his hand. This cute little guy drove to my office, told me he had a girlfriend, and he was miserable. And I really could see why he was miserable, because he was either going to get a vestibuloplasty to increase his length to hold a denture, and that was no guarantee. Either he had a shallow palate. And again, I want you to feel the no pressure approach. I would call it the educational. I mean, isn't that my job? Isn't that our job? To really inform a patient. I always call it to the patient. I tell them, we're going to do something I call what to do when. Right? You're sitting here in my chair right now. You came to me with a specific reason. And if you guys go back to my early podcast, you'll hear me talk about case presentation in the form of what to do when. Because what to do when means you always do a full comprehensive oral exam. Because nobody should put 10 units in their mouth if their periodontal health is not stable, if there's occlusal factors that'll destroy those 10 units. How can you not even begin to think like that, right? So, and the more you do it and the more sincere you are, meaning sometimes you don't get the cases. I know it sounds, patronizing or not accurate. The more I do it, the more I say to a patient, I said, first of all, I am not here to sell you. I'm not going to do that. I actually say those words. Not every time, but a lot. I said, what I want to do is educate you as to, you came in here, you told me your chief complaint, or they didn't have a chief complaint. And my job is to give you primo oral health, if you care about that, because that's the only reason to come to me. And I guess success leads to higher success, and confidence leads to higher confidence. And I have a lot of big days in the course of a year. But so early in the year, to have such a successful day, incorporating, okay, the skill sets. I would have been able to do any of this had I not trained, a lot of it, I mean. And by the way, in your world, maybe you do molar endo. I don't even do molar endos. I don't even do ortho. None. So maybe it doesn't have to be advanced. Clearly, some of this is advanced implant surgery, and some of it's not advanced. The two patients that broke their anterior teeth to the gum is not advanced surgery. So I beckon you, I implore you to go back, use these podcasts. And it is really gratifying when it all comes together. There's probably going to be some weeks this year where you're going to hear me. I'll look depressed, and I'll tell you how bad the week went and why, probably. But it won't be because we're trying to force veneers down somebody's throat or talk them into replacing a tooth that's been missing for 10 years, and they don't even care. It's about, now, sometimes, by the way, missing a tooth can lead to other pathology that patient's experiencing. I get it. I don't want you to think I don't think that matters. Anyway, I hope this reset why we do all of this. And I wanted to give it to you this week. And next week, I'm going to get back to more, this is how we do this part of the Lionhearted practice. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week on the Lionhearted.